Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Hugo Naumorni, and I am the chairman of the European CIO Association. Please allow me that on behalf of the Euro CIO board and our members to welcome you to our first webinar we are organizing this year. So for those of you that still don't know yet, the European CIO Association is an association that has more than 20 years of activity, and we are joined together several national bodies, association, and global CIOs across Europe. So as you probably know, we are a non-for-profit organization, independent, and we are all volunteers, and our main purpose is to represent the large IT user communities, both from private and public sector. So we're engaged in several European authorities programs and initiatives, and we are lobbying for the IT users communities in front of European authorities. Of course, sharing and developing vision and exchanging experiences at European level for the better use of information technology is also another mission we have. So if by any chance you are a global CIO or you are a national CIO association representative and you want to join us, join our efforts, and you share same ideas, and you're meeting our criteria actually, please contact us and you might join us. So for this year, we prepared a set of webinars and workshops and conferences that address in particular a lot of major topics for the CIOs, in particular cybersecurity, artificial cloud computing, vendor dispute resolutions, and others. So this is the first of our event. Our events are organized by CIOs for CIOs. One particularity for our events is that in general, our events are organized for our members and also for our followers. No press and no vendors, and very important, all the events are organized, or the majority of them organized on the Chatham House rules. So if by any chance you don't want to follow us under those rules, you can disconnect it right now. The events are free of charge, so whenever it's a sponsor, it's not the case for today. The events are based on the case study, so no commercial content it's allowed. So, well, for today, our first session from this year, we propose you a very challenging topic. The topic is named GAIA-X. I guess the majority of you knows about this project. Project initiated, I guess, less than 2 years ago by the German and France IT communities. Later, all the European members basically joined this project. What is actually GAIA-X? And I really like this statement, innovation through digital sovereignty. This is the main goal of the GAIA-X. It's a very interesting statement, and I think the main idea and the main purpose of this project at European level is to create a federated system that links many cloud providers and users together. So basically the ideas of the fact that users keep control of their data and retain the sovereignty of their data, it's the most important part of this GAIA-X project. So couple of ideas. We will have in the next minutes very important guests. We will have Mr. Francesco Bonfiglio, which is the CEO of the GAIA-X. He will be presenting us several important direction of GAIA-X project. There will be 45 minutes per presentation, which includes actually 15 minutes of the Q&A. We are highly encourage you to put questions directly into the chat of the Zoom. The Q&A session will be moderated by our board member, by Luciano Guglielmi, and well, you will be muted during the presentation. So basically, without any further, I would like to invite Mr. Francesco Bonfiglio, the CEO of GAIA-X, to the stage. Francesco, you got the floor.
Thank you, Hugo, and I hope you can see me. Hi, everybody. It's an honor to be your guest today. Well, actually, Hugo made already a very good introduction of GAIA-X. I think everybody knows GAIA-X, but possibly most of you have heard about it, but don't know yet exactly what it is and what it's aimed to do. And that's why I'm here. So I'll be happy to show you some slides, but actually responding to all the questions that will come out. So with that said, let me briefly introduce what GAIA-X is, and then I will start my presentation. GAIA-X was born as a governmental project by Germany. As a matter of fact, this was started in 2019 as a project funded by the BNWI, so the Minister of Economy and Energy. All of a sudden, France realized they wanted in their government, in their country. So the project became a Franco-German project. But right after Italy stated the same intention to build a sovereign cloud that could serve for the national needs of public sector and industrial sector. And therefore, in 2020, GAIA-X became an association. So it's not a project, it's not directly funded by any government or by the European Commission. It's a totally private association. It is an ASBL, an Association Internationale Sans But Lucratif, so a non-profit organization based in Brussels. And now it has more than 280 members. So from the foundation of the association, which happened early this year, to the establishment of the new management board, which I am the lead of, which happened in March, we onboarded from the original 22 founding members, 11 French and 11 German. We now have 25 countries and more than 280 members from all over Europe and outside of Europe. The intent is to build a new data infrastructure to enable the free circulation, the free sharing of data, the creation of data spaces with a cloud that is transparent and sovereign. Now, this is a bold statement, so let me switch to my presentation to ask some of the very key questions that maybe most of you have in mind. The first, most important is, why GAIA-X? Why we need GAIA-X? So let's start to make it simple and look at the most important facts. European is calling for data economy, for a renaissance of data economy. So the message from the president of the European Commission was very clear. We need common data spaces to enable a data economy. What are common data spaces? That data space is a numerical representation of an ecosystem, first of all. There is many definitions, but basically when we talk about data spaces, we talk about pools of data that represent a specific business, a specific ecosystem. Might be a social ecosystem, might be a city, might be a factory, might be a complete business like banking, insurance, automotive, etc. But is it really sufficient to create data spaces? So what is the real outcome of creating data spaces? What is this all about? This is all about the so-called platform economy. So we all live today thanks to data platform. And this is, I think, the strongest statement that was understood by all the people all over the world in this year and a half. Unfortunately, the COVID pandemic crisis taught us the importance of data platforms, because in these times of segregation, of isolation, of loss of contact with the real world, the only way to survive was through digital platforms. What are the platforms? Basically, platforms are aggregate of technology that allow to combine the data from all over the possible sources. Now, data come from machines, from cars, from things in general, the IoE world, but also from corporate databases, from data warehouses, from open data, more and more growing. So there's an incredible amount of data sources, and they need to be shuffled, meshed up, correlated, and applied to algorithms in order to produce smart services. The smart services are services that allow to automate or improve or create new business. So this is a completely different paradigm than the original IT paradigm. The original IT paradigm was technology used to automate processes that were invented by humans. And basically, technology was used to improve or accelerate or reduce the errors of processes that were written and defined by humans according to the humans' needs and the humans' limitations. Smart business is made of processes that is based on the technologies. Basically, the technology drives the business, drives the process, and create new business. So the combination of data and business is these platforms that we use all day, platforms for CRM, for ERP, for collaboration, for payment, for whatever. Without platforms, we wouldn't have any data economy at all. We would stick with a lot of data. We would still have our own business. We would try to digitize it or digitalize it, but we would have no economy. Now, if that is true, platforms are all the things we are saying, the data, the smart services and the platform, which is the enabler of all these things, simply would not exist without the cloud. So all these things exist and live only after the advent of the cloud and after a significant adoption of the cloud as a technology, as a digital enabler, as a technology enabler. Now, what are we talking about again? We are talking about a real economy. We are talking about an economy that was 100 billion in 2019 in Europe. 33% of that economy was in the end of a single player, and most of it was in the end of non-European players. This is not good. It's in the European situation, as you can imagine. But fairly good news is that by 2025, this economy volume will increase up to almost 1 trillion euros. So the rate of growth is incredible. And even better, the number of data available in Europe will grow incredibly. So roughly 50% year over year to reach almost 50 billion devices connected. So we are in a bad position. We have a great opportunity to tackle by 2025, and we have an incredibly big amount of quality data in Europe. This is one of the most important things. We're talking about real economy, which is becoming more and more a significant part of the GDP. And we're talking about an economy which is related to platforms, which is related to cloud, and which is related to the quality of data. It's not the mass of data, it's the quality of data. In Europe, we have quality data. We are not leveraging it. And our economy is based on investments that simply go out of Europe. It's a simple equation. But again, one may ask, where are we? Where do we stand? These are concrete data. You can check them, Eurostat or other sources. This is the total amount of market capitalization of company producing data platforms. So this is the total amount of the world. And as you can see, Europe owns 9 companies that make the 4% of the total. Is in the US with 20 companies, and 20% is in Asia with 16 companies. So we realize now that the potential of the data economy is incredible. The numbers we were talking about, were referred to the European economy. You can imagine the worldwide data economy is becoming more and more real economy. It's not something for CIOs, it's not something for technology vendors, it's not just something for experts of this sector. It's real economy that will make the difference in the future of our loved ones, our families, our sons. So what's new in GAIA-X? One may think, and everybody might agree with the need to do something, but why GAIA-X? What is new in GAIA-X? We are doing a simple thing. We are trying to move from a model where the cloud is concentrated, proprietary, and opaque. You cannot see it through. It's concentrated because it's based on the so-called hyperscale model, which is a model of hyper concentration, the economic model behind the cloud that we use today. For those of you that own and manage a data center or even a cloud platform, as you well know, is based on the concept of saturation. So you have to saturate as much as you can the existing resources, and you do that only leveraging existing resources, and you do that only sharing existing resources. So you cannot allow to have dedicated resources. You can do that, but the cost and the efficiency will become completely different. Technology are proprietary. That means you cannot move from one cloud to another, but actually you don't own the technology. You don't even know what the technology is, and it may change at any time. And it's opaque, so you don't have all the levers, all the controls you might want to have to understand, control, or get evidence of how your data is treated, where it is stored, by whom is accessed, for doing what. We want to move into a model where the cloud is distributed, is open and transparent. Distributed means distributed horizontally across different nodes. So it's a concept of federation. It's a concept of grid, actually. Cloud was born with the intent of building a computing grid. But if you look at it now, it's just a big mainframe in some data centers somewhere in the world. It's not a grid computing, not at all. Why we need a distributed computing? Because data is distributed. So the future of computing is distributed. No way, we cannot decide. And this is also the end of the hyper-verticalized cloud. Not that it will not survive or it won't be necessary, but it will live together with a more and more increasing need for distributed computing, distributed AI, distributed security, distributed networking. Also, we are building something open. The project of GAIA-X is an open source project. We're not just writing specifications or standards, not at all. We are developing with hundreds and now more than 2,000 people, a new set of federation services that will implement this paradigm that I'm talking about. And it will be transparent because it will provide the users the ability to see how data are treated, where they are, who can do what with them. So this is the concept of trust and sovereignty. We need to build trust between technology providers and technology users. We need to build trust in data owners, which is me and you and the industrial data of our companies and those actors that will treat the data. We need to ensure that this digital ecosystem that is becoming more and more our society, is part of our life, our society, obeys the same rule we obey as civil person in a civil society. So we want to move from a model where users let someone else control the data to a model where users get control of our data. This is GAIA-X. We want to move to a sovereign approach. Everybody knows that the current cloud has got a problem in terms of a one-way approach. You can select amongst the best cloud platforms in the world, but there is no interoperability. It's very limited. And if you want to implement interoperability, you have to build additional software layers. And again, interoperability depends on other technology. So the model per se is absolutely sustainable, and it's logical that any cloud provider will try to capture as much as they can their clients, because this sustain and support their hyper-concentrated business model. But on the other side, users will not trust making a choice because they seriously know there is a one-way risk. So the possibility of not coming back. So every cloud users, every CIO, every company, every public sector wants to make sure they cannot make they will not make the wrong choice, and they will be able to change their choice in time. So everybody wants a cloud where you can select provider A, B, C, and turn around and move your workloads in the way you want, and make sure the workloads talk one another, and maybe data from one side, the algorithms on another side, and you can combine all the resources in the way you want. The lack of this type of paradigm is the cause, the root cause of the very low level of penetration of cloud in Europe, because we stand around 25%, 26 is the correct average in every country of Europe. There may be something more, something less in the Nordics, there is a higher level of penetration, but the average is this 26%, 25%. Now, if you take off the software as a service and the platform as a service, that 25% goes well below 20%. As you can imagine, most of the cases it's less than 15%, but let's assume 20% means 80% of our infrastructures and 80% of our data, your corporate data are not on the cloud. So without having your data on the cloud, you cannot leverage them, you cannot build value on that, you cannot build platforms, you cannot create data spaces. And therefore, this is a deadlock we are trying to unlock. We are trying to build something that will enable a new economy of data. And without doing a new data infrastructure with these paradigms, this will not happen. This is the GAIA-X project in a nutshell. So the X letter represents the two ecosystems we are putting together, the data ecosystem and the infrastructure ecosystem. The yellow boxes are the so-called GAIA-X Federation services. And those are clusters of software services that will take care of the identity and trust, so controlling the identity of every single actor participating in any federation, so you are assured about their identity and the identity of whom access your data and the identity of whom manages your data or provides the services you are using. The sovereign data exchange is the module that takes care of the sovereignty. So you get access control, you decide who can use your data, you define the rules basically that will be applied by the infrastructure, so you can ensure that you get control of your data. Then you need a catalog, you need to search for services, you need to find the services, you need to make sure that all the GAIA-X services will be visible, searchable, and findable to build an economy. And of course, we need compliant services that will ensure that all these characteristics and these requirements are respected at runtime and not just at specification or design time. With this picture, we want to put together existing infrastructures, as you say, in the roots of this tree, and without building new infrastructures. And this is one of the key advantages. We want to reuse existing data centers, existing private cloud, existing hybrid cloud, existing public clouds, but as well, we will be able to connect the future infrastructures and provide any sort of service from HPC or edge computing or sector specific through the very same, let me call it, meta cloud layer. So basically GAIA-X is a sort of meta cloud. It's a new layer that stays on top, in between, or around the typical three-layer IaaS, PaaS, SaaS, which is changing itself. It's no more let me say, so representative of the reality of the cloud that I described, which is going to be completely distributed, fragmented, interoperable. So we are building this new generation of cloud concept. So in a nutshell, this is the principles of GAIA-X. We have a vision to put together actors and create federations. We want to create a European cooperation, which goes well beyond technology, as you can imagine, because in order to build federation, you need to have actors that decide to work together to build offerings. We want to build a transparency, as I said, and our objective is to foster the creation of digital ecosystems and of data spaces in a secure environment, and provides, let me say, providing all the concrete mechanism to protect the data, yes, but also to use the data, because this is one of the most important missing parts of the GDPR for all of you. I'm sure you know very well. The GDPR was an extremely important act, but at the same time, it produced a very negative effect of slowing down or even stopping in most of the cases any sort of disrupting the digitalization project because of the risk of running into penalties, into fines, and not knowing exactly how to treat the data. And instead, we now need to understand how to use data, keeping them safe, but producing data economy. So what's the strategy of GAIA-X? First of all, we have business drivers. These are the three I recognize. We want a European data sovereignty. If all I said is true, we need to gain sovereignty on our data. We need to gain sovereignty on our natural resources. We need to gain sovereignty on our money. You can imagine that we could leave knowing that China has monopolized the production, I don't know, of labels for tomato sauce. I think nobody would really go crazy for a message like that. But if somebody told you that from now on, we will never produce water and we will give out our water to another country, just one or two countries that will bottle the water, and we will have to buy back our water from them with no control, all of you, any citizen, will certainly be very disappointed and understand the risk of becoming completely hostage and slave of that type of economy. So we need a European data sovereignty. We need to reduce the dependency from non-European technology, not to cut the boundaries, not to raise walls, but to provide an alternative that would allow our investments, large investments of any company, of your companies that are already down there, are in your budget, but simply are going out the boundaries of Europe because there is no European alternative. We need to reduce this dependency to start building, to start recovering at least some of this digital economy that we are already feeding with our investments. We need to enable a competitive European economy of data. So this is the very famous concept of level playing field. We have an unfair playing field today where a few players control almost all the market. And this is very critical because these players do not even, cannot even apply the jurisdiction of Europe. And some jurisdictions are in conflict. You can think about the Cloud Act versus the GDPR, but actually we have the recent sentence of the Court of Justice, the Schrems II, that have raised a great concern about how can we use American technology that, as a matter of fact, can be accessed by the American authority, regardless of where the data are, and even regardless of whether the company that owns the data is American or it is an American subsidiary. This is raising a big debate, and we cannot run the risk that tomorrow any wall, any ban, anything is raised against our data. We need to make sure we have full control of our data. And we need to create a competitive technology, not to become protectionist. We need to build something that will allow Europe to be more competitive on the worldwide market. So the explicit critical success factors that I see are a demand match. So we need to build value for the user, not just for the sake of building something new. We need to produce tangible outcomes, so industry reusable stuff. And we are doing it with developing this software infrastructure. And we need to do it in an inexpensive way, because too many times CIOs have run into the problem of having to adopt a standard, having to adapt to a standard. This is typically a cost, but not necessarily you saw the benefit of it. So we need to produce benefit in an inexpensive way. The implicit success factors are that we need to build a data economy advocacy, because believe it or not many people understand what we are talking about here. And not just in the common people or people out of the IT business, but also professionals, politicians. And there are so many different views, so many different tensions, there's so many different interpretations of what cloud is, what data economy is, that it is paramount that people like you and me talk about this. We need to explain what data economy is. We need to explain to the people what we are talking about, because in 10 years' time, it would be too late. And it's not there yet. We need to be evangelists some way, somehow in our daily job. And this is a help I'm asking you all. We need to have a broader competition landscape. We don't need to reduce the competition landscape. We do the opposite. We need to create something that is needed, is not there, and for the first time in life, Europe can lead in a disruptive technological project in the world. And we need regulation by automation. That is my preferred one. Actually, the technology now allows to build the regulation, the certification, all those nasty mechanisms that typically imply time, effort, single authorities, and costs. All that can be done nowadays using distributed consensus, verifiable claims, digital ledgers, and very secure technologies that basically can make technology self-compliant. This is what we are thinking about, and this will be one of the critical success factors we'll follow. My priorities is to set up a very strong team, enable the working groups. We have 12, we have 6 working groups with 12 work packages, projects running in parallel. We are creating the national hubs. We have 14 national hubs running. Every national hub works on the development of data spaces specific to their countries, but in collaboration with other hubs. We need to create awareness and sharing, so we need to make it visible. We need to talk about GAIA-X, and we need to talk about the capability of European players, European companies, European technology providers and technology users. We need to tell a story. We need to develop data spaces, not many, a few, but very effective. I call moving from use cases to business cases. We need to build business cases based on data. We need to align with the EU bodies, because there is a lot of stories around what I'm talking about, around the cloud, around the edge computing, the future of data and data spaces. So we are building, we are lobbying, representing our association, and we work in close contact with the European Commissions and with all the governments to make sure we sing from the same hymn. And we need to produce deliverable, tangible results. I'm coming from the business. Until a few months ago, I was the CEO of a business company. I was selling cloud services and digital services. This is my first time in an association. This is the only way I know how to work. We need to produce tangible results. 5 years outlook, 21 will be the setup here, 22 the adoption here, 23 the grow, 24 the expand, and 25 the scale. If you look at the right side, is a kind of ASBL, so the GAIA-X Association pushing for the first half, and the market pulling. If this will not happen, it means 2 things. 1, we have done the wrong project, or 2, we have been beaten by time. So it's a feasible plan. We have already identified all the technology that we need, but it's a very challenging plan in terms of timing, in terms of complexity. So we need to rush and we need to move. But we will have the initial federation services at the end of the year. That means the first GAIA-X services can be built. We will have the initial federations by the next year. That means the first catalogs and the first marketplace of GAIA-X services will start. Then from the year after, just making a simple count, if we are almost 300 members today, and we will be maybe 350 or even more next year, and in the year to come, you can imagine that even if half of our members, which are paying a due and working, so investing their time, I hope they will want to develop or use GAIA-X services. So even if a half of our members will use or produce a GAIA-X service, I'm seeing the turnover here in 2023, because we will start to have a real tangible marketplace. So GAIA-X will become a market element. And from that point on, the demand of GAIA-X services will pool and create new GAIA-X services, new GAIA-X marketplaces. My objective is to achieve in 5 years a share on the worldwide economy of data platform around or above 10%. We are at 4%. It's not impossible, but it's a huge change. But at least in Europe, we could reach 30, 40% of the share, which would be an incredible result. And most important, it would not be something that can turn back. So it would be irreversible. Some fast fact to conclude. These are some milestones, and we are developing, we're just releasing now by the end of June, actually today, a new release of the technical architecture document, which will now focus on the operating model. The previous was focusing on the conceptual model, and the next one in September will focus on the business model of the architecture. We are developing the federation services through a German funded project. It's not funding the ASBL, but it's a public tender that works to develop the federation services based on the GAIA-X specifications. And we will start to see the first federation services, like I said, at the end of this year. In the meanwhile, we have a lot of webinars and technical deep dive. Stay tuned if you are interested. There's a lot of documentation to look at. And we will have a very important event, which is not here yet, but it's going to be our annual summit in November. That's the date I'm thinking about. So it might be around the 18th or 19th, or just in the process of planning it. 14 hubs and many to come. The ones you see, the names are the ones that have already been inaugurated. Others are going to be inaugurated sooner or later, before the end of July. We had this target of 15 hubs by Half-1, and we achieved it, and we want to have all the 27 countries have a local hub, and we're working hard on that. The next one will be Spain, Greece, and we just had Slovakia. This slide is not updated. We will have Poland, and many others are going to join. 27% are non-profit association or startups, 20% is large companies, 20% small companies, 32% medium companies. So if you sum them up, you see that almost 65% of our members are small, medium business, which is extremely important because we give equal opportunity to all our members that otherwise could not be on those big tables where we are defining the future and the projects for many local governments. Some numbers here, 27, and again, the number is growing. These slides are a couple of weeks old, and we are over the 280 members, 25 countries, 14 hubs, and 1,800 people contributing and working in parallel on the documents, on the code, 6 working groups, 12 working package, all working on one single mission. We are on social media. We were not there. There was not enough attention to the communication, but now we're improving. So we start to have a few followers. We have a LinkedIn page, a Twitter page, and you can follow us on there. We have had a good participation to events, 8,000 participants in 16 more events, a lot of keynotes, and more to come. And we are building an institute, actually, a GAIA-X Institute, which will be led by the Fraunhofer Institute, which is one of the members that will take care, will become the think tank of GAIA-X, will take care of the production of content, the technology transfer onto the industry, and the collaboration between academics and industry and civil society and economy and politics, which are very important stakeholders that need to be tied together. Many articles, and many are coming more and more. I spend actually quite a big portion of my time in interviews because everybody's interested in knowing what GAIA-X is and what we're doing, and that's an important part of the job, like I said. And we should all learn to speak more about our capabilities in Europe, and not talking GAIA-X here. I'm talking about Europe. And to make a joke, I keep saying that it's important, le savoir-faire, but it's important as well, the faire savoir. You have to let everybody know what you can do. Last but not least, we have a new website, not fully perfect, up and running because we had an old one. Some of the content is still being migrated, but you can find us on GAIA-X.eu with all the documents available, all the links if anyone wants to join. our association. It's pretty simple. It's over there. And of course, you can always reach out to me if you have any questions. And I will pause here with my presentation. I didn't see the watch, so I might be late. I hope not. And I'm here for you for any questions or follow-up.
Thank you very much, Francesco. I'm very happy you have joined us in this webinar, because now I think we can have a more deep knowledge of the value of the GAIA-X project, and he has explained better this meta cloud infrastructure, as you define the GAIA-X project. I wanted to use the remaining time to go more in depth in some concept or clarifying our comprehension of these projects. And I invite all the attendees to put their question via the chat, and I forward these questions to you. Starting, let me say, but does Europe really need the GAIA-X project in this global market that we have today? And is Europe enough strong to set up a similar project against the US giants? How many chances we have that the GAIA-X project becomes a winner project and a milestone in the relationship between Europe and the rest of the world?
Yes. Well, Europe needs to do something, and I think this is the last call. So we need to move, and it's not just a matter of becoming more competitive than America or China in the technology field. It's really what I try to explain, the need, the awareness that data is basically our future. We cannot live without data. And nobody everybody understood that data is our life. So nobody would be willing to let anyone control your life. And in the very same way, we need to regain control of our technologies, our platforms, our data. Why we need to do that, and we cannot do it with our existing technologies, because we are becoming slave of a few players. And in any, these are basics of economy. So when you become basically dependent on a few providers, the risk of jeopardizing your business becomes bigger. I think that in the data economy, this is not a risk. This is an issue by far, and we need to very quickly get to the defense and revert back to protect our economy. I would not, it would not be difficult for me imagining a future where our job becomes obsolete, our, let me say, economy becomes obsolete because we gave it out. And this can be true in many fields, in many fields that are now controlled by technology. So that means that we may become, let me say, a future colony of lower cost labor resources, and I hate to make this type of future scenarios, but if you think about the level of needs in Europe, the level of unemployment, which is growing, and also after this COVID effect, you can easily think that we need to do something very quickly, because this phenomenon change in years, 5 years, 10 years time. And when you realize that, it's too late. Second, can we do it? Yes, of course we can. Let's be aware of the fact that all the most innovative technologies that are now at the basis of the cloud platforms, the big ones that we are talking about, were born in Europe. We have the best startups that are captured by US venture capitals. An ecosystem that can develop them. We have the best patents, and we have the best data. You can imagine that anyone that wants to build an automotive business around the world, if they could look at the data of BMW, Volkswagen, Daimler, and Stellantis all together, they will certainly buy their data, because there is no way they can build that experience and know how to optimize that process without looking at Europe. This is true for in industries, Industry 4.0, was a great example, but it's true also for anything related to the fashion, anything related to the food, energy, agriculture, renewable, you name it. So we have such a differentiation in Europe in a relatively small surface that makes our data the most quality on planet Earth. Can we do it technically speaking? Yes, because the technology is there, and we don't need to build something new. Somebody confused GAIA-X with an initiative to build a new cloud player. It's not that. We are not going to be an operator. Or they confused it with the initiative to build new technology that is more advanced than the American or the Chinese one. I would say this is not possible, honestly speaking. But the most important thing is that what we are building does not exist yet. And what we are building is a completely different paradigm, because the future of computing will be leveraging the power we have on each device. We will be leveraging the power we have in each data centers, maybe throwing away the really obsolete one, but keeping the good part of it, and building on top this kind of refresher layer, federation layer that provides additional value, because the real value is no more in the resources itself, but it's in the control you can get over the resources. So this model is completely new. There is nothing like that in the market. There are some startups that did something similar, but at a smaller scale. And the future of data is distributed. The present of data is distributed. So the future of computing has to be distributed. So we are doing the right thing at the right time, and nobody has done this yet. Why? Because Americans have invested incredible amount of money in a completely orthogonal model. Will they change their mind? I hope so, but it's not something we will be driving. Data will drive that change. At that point in time, as a paradox, Europe will have a competitive advantage because we were late and we have less to lose than them.
Yeah, really interesting concept. You have to put our mind on this concept and try to understand in which way we can rise for the future. Let me have a look of the question coming from the chat. The first one, regarding identity and trust, how do you treat trust? As a full trust, no trust, or a trust scoring formal evaluation of trust level?
Well, trust is trust. I mean, trust is the basis of any relationship. And trust is also in the contractual part. You can imagine that having a contract that contains common set of policy rules that apply to every cloud you buy would be an extremely advantage for any procurement office. Now we don't have that. You know very well that every cloud provider has got different T's and C's, different policies, different rules, and they hide most of the details. So just trying to understand the differences drives you crazy. And this does not build trust. The most important thing when you give your money to a bank is the trust. You're not giving the money because that bank is more secure, or you know exactly what they are going to do with your money. You know nothing, but you trust them because they have been doing well, and you have mechanisms that allow you. They are using your money in the best possible way. But to build trust, you need to have transparency and sovereignty. This is trust. It's not a technology concept. And at the contractual level, at the technological level, at the labeling level, I didn't mention about the labels, but labels is a very important part of GAIA-X. We will build this label that will provide evidence of what's going on inside. So the labels will be attached to a service, not a service provider. You cannot obtain a label just paying for it or undertaking a certification process. No, you have to develop a service, use the federation services, use the compliance services. Those compliance services will talk to other compliance services in the network of GAIA-X services, and these services will talk together and agree with each other that they are trusted, and they will register this information onto a digital ledger based on blockchain, where we are one of the actors, but not the only one. So this is the future of digital trust.
Good, and then I think that another question that we have via chat can be the following of this concept. Is there a project dedicated to normalize data, define ontology, and develop standards or metadata for industry in general or specific sector? And why there is no vertical for media? This is two questions.
Well, yeah, I know why you're asking that question. You come from media, but as you have seen, the upper part of the X is data spaces. So GAIA-X has two big legs. Okay, one is the infrastructure, and the other is the data spaces. And I keep saying that the two legs need to run at the same speed, otherwise you fall down. And in the data space working groups, we are developing data spaces on specific verticals, and at times, and more in time, they will become across verticals, because you know the future is going to be horizontal. But anyway, we have 6 data spaces identified, which is public sector, healthcare, automotive, industrial. I can't remember by heart now, pardon me, but I will find them. And they are growing, by the way, because every hub is working on slightly different ones. And the data space business committee is also evolving. So all I'm talking about is a continuous evolution, of course. There is where we work exactly on those things that were asked. So ontologies, data connectors, and common data schemas, and as well, together with the infrastructure that will also allow to implement concepts like compute to data. So you leave the data where it is, and the algorithm on another side, you decouple the two, and you can work, let me say, creating instances of the process that are completely unaware of the data. So there is a combination of techniques and of principles like data connectors and data ontologies that are working together, because otherwise data spaces will become just a theoretical exercise, and infrastructure will become just a technical exercise. We are doing that, and we are doing it in collaboration also with the IDSA and with the BDVA and with the FIWARE, with many associations that basically are becoming converging under the umbrella of GAIA-X, because actually GAIA-X is kind of summarizing all this effort of these associations that were started earlier, and there's a lot of synergy.
And another question that is very important is, what is the process to adhere to GAIA-X? What are the tangible benefits for a company to join? There are different topologies of membership. Any costs associated to the membership?
Yeah, it's simple. There is a link on the website. You click on that and you follow the process. You receive all the information, and as well the fee that you have to pay. The fees goes from 2,500 euros to 5K, 10K, 20K, 45K, and 75K, depending on the revenues turnaround. So non-profit organization, they pay the less, and organization with more than 10 billions revenues, they pay the highest fee. The benefits are many. In this phase, we are building consortium. So basically, we are helping creating consortium of member companies that are proposing projects. You can imagine to the recovery funds in every country, more than response to public calls for tenders issued by the European Commission. And we kind of provide accreditation to those proposals. We ensure that those proposals are GAIA-X compliant. We build memorandum of understanding to guarantee the funding organizations, so the governments, that those projects will produce GAIA-X deliverables. And you think about that, if you think about that, it's quite important, because sitting at the table of GAIA-X now means becoming capable to influence the decisions of the governments, the decision of the European Commission from a totally private standpoint. We are not a political organization. We are not a standard organization. So we are doing this because there's a lot of need to projects where the funding can be spent. But the problem of government has always been two. On one side, they need to know where to spend the project. And we are giving them one project, one single, and not a fragmented 100 projects where you basically waste the money. Two, they need to ensure that that project produces business outcomes or benefits for the society. And what we are doing, we are putting together the providers, the users, and the single project. So this is a guarantee. This provides a lot of trust to the government, and that's why for every national hub we have the local government engaged, sitting in a steering committee. So in Italy, just because me and you we are Italian, we have Italian hub with a steering committee where Mr. Stefano Firpo, who is the chief cabinet of the Minister of Digital Transition, Vittorio Colau, is sitting in the table. There's a lot of commitment. So one of the benefits is being there. You can influence the future. You can be part of this large consortium. You can actually propose projects that maybe you have in your pocket and you could not develop, or you cannot develop by yourself. I think it's a pretty unique opportunity, a combination of funding, ideas, and good projects.
Francesco, we are running very fast to the end of the event, but just in a few words, what is the competitive advantage generated from the GAIA-X project for the CIOs? We are CIOs. What is the competitive advantage?
Well, competitive advantage for CIOs is once in a lifetime, you can trust a single offer of cloud, being assured you will not be locked in, and you will have to find someone to blame, because it's the typical problem of CIOs. And I've been in that role as well. So I think that it's a great advantage, and we are building a European opportunity. We are building a secure opportunity that respect the European jurisdictional law, and we are building a unique set of standards and specification that will make it easy to buy, or to buy cloud, to buy data, and to build your own data spaces. So basically, we are destroying all those barriers that typically the CIOs are scared about.
Okay, Francesco, thank you very much for your time. Now I leave it to Hugo to close the webinar. Thank you all.
Very much, Francesco. Thank you very much, Luciano. Very, very valuable input. And I think right now we all understand much more about the GAIA-X project. And honestly, I do hope that this project will not basically raise a new kind of economic Cold War between Europeans and Americans or Chinese, but basically it's very, I mean, Europeans deserve to have more control over the data. It's absolutely clear. I'm surprised that Romania is not yet onto the present with a national hub, and I will manage to solve the topic, and I will address this immediately with you. Thank you again very much. I do believe that there are still a lot of questions that need some answers, but it's clear. But anyway, absolutely fabulous. And I think we will invite you, and we would like to have your presence into our annual conference that will be held somewhere on September. However, until then, we will have, we'll invite everybody to register for our next event that will be held on Wednesday, on 7th July. As I mentioned to you, we'll start a set of webinars and events. The next event address cybersecurity. And we will have a very interesting webinar named Digital Transformation Risks, Surviving the Service Provider Security Breach. And we will have Morgan Saleh, Group Information Security Officer, as a host from Air Liquide. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your presence today. And I wish you a very good afternoon and a very good evening. Thank you.